Hearty welcome to all knowledge seekers to my channel. This is Dr. Madhusudan Rao Kadapa. In this video, I am going to explain some important concepts related to demand forecasting. First, we come across the definition of the demand forecast, then its importance, classification, then factors influencing the demand forecast, and factors to be considered while forecasting the demand, and then the steps in forecasting. Starting with the definition, demand forecasting is a systematic method of probing the future. That means any organization that deals with a product or a service, it must know what will be the future demand. So there are several methods and techniques to find the future demand for a product or service based on the past demand. So the past demand will form the basis to find the future demand, and it will also help the organization in analyzing the facts related to the future situations and forces which may affect the business. Now, coming to the point of view of different functional areas like marketing, production, finance, and there are some other managerial functions in organizations, and all these functions some way or the other interested in demand forecast. Here we are going to discuss about how the marketing and how the production and operations will look at the forecasting data. So for marketing, the forecast is the estimate of the amount of unit sales, maybe in rupees or in physical units, for a specified future period under proposed market plan under assumed set of economic and other forces outside the organization. So from marketing point of view, this is what they mean forecast, just to estimate the future demand based on a set of assumptions and a set of conditions. From production and operations point of view, forecast is a guidance because the capacity of machines required, the quantity of materials, the time required to make the forecasted demand, and then manpower requirements. So all these requirements planning, maybe men, material, machinery, whatever it is, in order to achieve the forecast figures in demand, production and operations management will look at forecasting in that point of view, because unless the forecast or any other such guidance is not provided, production people may not be in a position to plan their requirements. Coming to the importance of sales forecasting, here we come across two important points. One is that it is a guiding factor, because the sales forecast will enable an organization to concentrate its efforts to produce the required quantities in the sense units of products, at right time, at right price, and at right quality. So Here the quality and quantity, time and price. So in order to achieve all this, we need a forecast so that we can understand, we in the sense the organization can understand what exactly the society is expecting from the firm, and accordingly we can fulfill the market requirements. So in order to achieve that, forecast is a guiding factor. And for the other activities, it forms the basis for planning other activities such as production activities. So the entire production plan to produce the forecast demand, all the required materials, machinery, equipment, time and any other resource, all the production activities, planning of such activities require the sales forecast information as a basis. And coming to pricing policies, basically when a product has more and more demand and suppose the anticipated future demand is very high, in such case the organization may take advantage of the demand for the product and they may go for increasing the prices. Or if the market conditions are such that the forecast, demand forecast shows that there is a very small or significant increase or maybe a significant decrease in the demand for the product, in such case the company may think of giving some discount on prices. Any such pricing policies may be decided on the basis of the data, the sales forecast data. And other strategies related to manufacturing, maybe like depending on the quantity of demand as per the forecast, whether to go for a single shift with overtime or to run 2 shifts depending on the demand, or run 3 shifts, or to produce a fixed quantity without increasing the facilities, that is in terms of equipment, machinery or people, or allowing overtime, simply producing the minimum quantity in the organization and giving some other organization some what you call subcontracting. So all these strategies need the information which is collected through sales forecast. And personal policies like depending on the demands, the decisions on recruitment, transfer, promotion, training, wages, incentives to employees, etc. can also be decided based on the forecast demand. Now here, when we look at the classification of forecasts based on time horizon, there are 3 types. One is the short range forecast, the other one is medium range, and last one is long range forecast. So depending on the period over which we make the forecast, these 3 types can be taken into consideration depending on the time horizon. And coming to the short range forecast, which may be for few weeks to 2 or 3 months. So the purpose of such short range forecasts are to estimate inventory requirements, to provide transportation facilities for dispatch of finished goods, to decide workload for machinery and men, and to find working capital requirements, and to set up the production run to meet the demand for that period, and to find the overtime requirements to meet the delivery promises. Suppose the capacity of the organization is not sufficient to fulfill the required quantities with a single shift. In such case, it may go for overtime production, or if the delivery lead times are shorter, then we can go for overtime even though we have sufficient capacity to produce uh, in a given duration. Then to fix sales quota, these are the sales quota means the target for sales people. The other things are self-explanatory. And coming to the medium range forecast, the forecasting period may vary from 3 to 6 months. So if the forecast is made over a period of 3 to 6 months, that kind of data will help uh, to determine the budgetary control over expenses, because the companies may have their own budget for the financial year. So if there are any changes in the quantities of production, automatically the material, manpower, or we may call the human resource, so the spending on different factors of production may go sometimes beyond the budget limits. So to determine the budgetary control and to find and control maintenance expenses, how much we are spending on maintenance of machinery and equipment, and how to control the expenses. So the forecast will form the basis for all this, like to schedule the operations. So depending on the forecast for next 3 to 6 months, the schedule of all operations in the organization can be done. To plan capacity adjustments. Capacity adjustment means we may have a definite capacity right now with the existing machinery and equipment. Suppose if you want to increase or decrease the capacity, not necessarily by adding machines or purchasing machines of higher capacity. So how best we can organize the available capacity, and how best we can adjust the capacities of different departments or work centers in order to have a smooth flow of work without any bottlenecks. Then to determine dividend policies, like that. So these are some of the things for which we need the medium range forecast data. And coming to the long range forecast, which may be made for a period 1 year to 5 years. So the purpose of such forecast is to work out the capital requirements for future developments, because if you know the forecast of demand for a particular product, how much capital we may require depending on the trend in the future periods, then to determine the expected cash flows from sale, so how much cash flow we can expect through sales, and then to plan future manpower requirements, because as the demand is somewhat promising and there is expected raise in demand or significant growth in next 5 years, then accordingly we can plan the future manpower requirements to meet those demands, and to plan material requirements, and to plan for research and development. So these are all the things which may need the data on long-term forecast. So we may use the different techniques which are available to estimate the forecast demand for a product. But whatever the method we use, because different methods may give different solutions, so the forecast value must be very close to the actual demand, when the actual time comes. So the deviation between the actual demand to the forecast demand is called, actually it is called deviation, and accuracy means the deviation should be as small as possible. So if the deviation is very small, then the forecast is said to be more accurate. But you can't expect any forecast to be 100% accurate. So definitely there will be some deviation. And why we need the forecast to be more accurate? Because first one is to meet the actual market requirements. So the forecast value should be very close to the market requirements, and then avoid over or under production. Because if the forecast made is such that it may lead to overproduction, or sometimes if the estimates are not properly done, we may not be in a position to meet the actual demand by the market. In such case, there may be underproduction. So forecast should be made very carefully and to minimize wastage of resources. Because whether we go for overproduction or underproduction, definitely there is wastage of resources if it is overproduction, and underproduction we may lose the market, and to improve the cash flow. So in order to achieve these objectives, definitely we need the forecast to be more accurate. Now coming to the factors influencing the forecast. Forecast may be influenced by several factors which are not under control of the organization, like changes in environment. Suppose the business environment, which is very dynamic, where so many changes may take place in the society, or maybe due to political or any other reason, there may be some changes in the environment that may lead to what you call the error in forecast, and the changes in customer preferences or tastes, which is unpredictable. So when customer preferences or tastes change, even though we used a very good technique to estimate the demand forecast for a product, but still if the customer preferences or tastes if it changes, automatically the actual demand for the product will be different than what we expect through our forecast. And coming to the number of competitive products or services, as we have done the forecast in a society where there are several competitors, those competitors may also carry out their own forecasts, and sometimes it may give some what you call maybe sometimes it may be confusing. Sometimes we may get some error in the results. So this may also influence the forecast. Then disposable income of customer. The disposable income of customer in order to buy a product or a service depends on so many factors. Suppose there is a drought, or there is some other any natural calamity or any disaster. In all such cases, the disposable income of the customer will come down. Or if some calamity like the recent one is COVID, or any such national calamities take place, in such case the people may not prefer to spend. In such case, whatever the forecast we have done may not be valid. Now coming to the factors to be considered for forecasting production. Suppose we are forecasting demand for a product, then demand from marketing department. We have to get the demand for the product from marketing department. That is what we call the past demand for the product. Then rate of labor absenteeism. Suppose you are interested in forecasting the production, how much production we will get in the future periods. For that, a rate of labor absenteeism is important. That will help in identifying the labor efficiency or labor productivity and how much additional labor we need depending on the rate of absenteeism, then availability of materials, availability of machines and their capacities, and the maintenance schedules, delivery schedules. So in order to forecast the production, how much we can produce in the future period, we need to focus on these factors. Next, coming to the steps in forecast. First is to determine the objectives of forecast. Why? What is the purpose for which we are making the forecast? And secondly, the period over which the forecast to be made, means whether we want to know the short term requirements or medium term or long term requirements. Accordingly, the period over which the forecast has to be made is to be selected, and the appropriate method of making the forecast must be selected. There are different methods available, so we have to select the appropriate method to make the forecast and collect the information required for the forecast and then finally make the forecast. So these are the steps in forecasting, and different methods of forecast will be explained in some other video. Thanks for watching this video. Like, comment, share and subscribe our channel for more videos. Thank you.